Business Growth Talks podcast is created and hosted by Mark Hayward. In this show, we talk about how to grow a business in the growth stage. The growth stage is often marked by rapid developments, increased revenue, and an escalating customer base. In each episode, we talk to entrepreneurs and business owners who have grown businesses, and we cover topics like scaling processes, market expansion, financial management, human resource and talent development, and customer retention. If you are looking for actionable advice, tips, and techniques on how to grow, run and build your business, this is the podcast for you.
Just a quick one. I just wanted to say thank you very much for joining me today and being with me on this show. One thing that is really important I want to share with you is this show is growing really well, and I'm so proud of it, and I'm so pleased that you're enjoying this content. But if you could please hit the follow and subscribe to this channel, it will really help the channel on its being able to grow and the people that we can have on this show. So please do consider, if you have a moment, please can you hit the subscribe button and the follow button, and I would really appreciate it. Today we have Darren Saul, who's a serial podcaster, strategist, trainer, and keynote speaker who discovered the power of podcasting to grow his recruitment and photography business. This led to him to embrace podcasting as a core marketing tool, eventually building a consultancy business to help him achieve similar results. Darren now coaches individuals and businesses on using podcasts to build trust, grow brand awareness, and drive results. His approach focuses on a 3-part podcast marketing system designed to simplify the process and reduce overwhelm. Hello, Darren. How are you today?
Very well, sir. Thank you for having me, Mark. Really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today. I think so. We're both in the podcast space. We both have businesses within the podcast space, different things, but in the similar area.
Yep.
So this is going to be a little special for me because I often get people that are on the show that have a podcast and we talk about it, but you're embedded in the industry, you're embedded in the business side as well as the podcast side.
Yes.
So I'm really looking forward to this.
Me too, man. Really appreciate it. That's awesome.
So the first question I ask all of my guests is, what does a business mindset mean to you?
That's a good one. A business mindset really, to me, it makes up the whole ethos of my general life philosophy. It's all about being curious. It's all about being able to try things and not worry about failing. It's really the mindset of just going through life and trying to grow. Because really, when I break down, I studied a bit of Buddhism and all that kind of stuff. And for me,
Right.
Life is just about growth. So if you're not trying stuff and you're not playing and you're not failing and you're succeeding and you're not doing any of that, you're just stagnating. And in business, it's exactly the same. You've got to keep trying, keep playing, keep experimenting. And you never know what doors open, but you've got to do the work to jump in the pool.
Yeah. And I just wrote down 2 words that you said, which I think are really important, and they actually work together, is failing, like accepting that you're going to fail at certain things, and also growth.
Yep.
As well, that whole idea of growing.
Love it.
Just break it down for me, like your experience of failure and growth coupled together, because they both are synonymous with how you grow is by failing fast.
Definitely.
Talk to me about that.
Fantastic. So I do a number of things. I've been a corporate recruiter for about 25 years, and I do a lot of work in photography, and I also do a lot of work in the podcasting space. So I kind of love that solopreneur, freelancer type life, and I have teams of people that help me do certain things so I don't have to do everything myself. But everything that I do is really driven by curiosity and just trying ideas and being quite impulsive. I'm very impulsive. So if I get an idea in my head, I'll just drop everything and I'll go and get it done. Hell or high water, it will be done. And a lot of the times they just fall apart. It becomes a ridiculous result, and it wasn't even worth me spending the time. But I really believe that everything that I do teaches me something. And every journey that I go through in business or other teaches me something, and it allows me to be better for the next thing. I'm failing all the time. I'm trying out ideas. They're working, they're failing. I'm failing as a salesperson. I'm succeeding as a salesperson. I'm failing as an artist. I'm succeeding as an artist. So we're constantly pushing the barriers. We're learning from other people. We're getting ideas. We're getting inspired. But if you're not willing to accept the failure and really reflect on it and learn from it to take the next step, it's a wasted exercise. So it's really about, all right, why did that fail? What could I have done better? What was good about it? Should I have done anything better? Except you have to really take a step back and reflect on what happened and analyze it. And then you'll learn for the next time.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you do 3 different things. So podcasting. Do you still do the recruitment?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so you do recruitment and photography. Something that my mentor, when I worked with him, I don't work with him currently at the moment, was that you sometimes you probably have shiny penny syndrome. You because I would be running 3 different businesses with different needs and different requirements, and he'd be like, just do one.
Yeah.
Like excel it. I'm like, yeah, but I've got a drive to do other things. So he's like, okay, you're obviously someone entrepreneurial that wants to do many different things. That's fine.
Yep.
You go ahead and do it. So how do you split your time between the 3 different areas to make them all successful? And I'm assuming it's a little bit like spinning plates. One slows down, you have to go and spin it.
Yep.
How do you do that and make it a success?
Yeah, really good one. I'll mention a couple of things, but as I said before, I am very impulsive. So sometimes I do drop the ball in one area because I dive so deep into another. But at a certain point, I have to pull myself back and say, all right, enough playing around with that now. Let's get back to this or the whole thing's going to fall apart. So I agree. I do have to every now and again just take a step back and rebalance, re-equilibrate. But I also am very organized, so I have to be extremely organized. I'm very good with, or I like to think I'm really good with systems, and I try not to let things fall through the cracks. Even if I'm doing the bare minimum, I'm setting up systems so the bare minimum is the status quo doesn't fall apart. And then the extras, okay, you can use a bit of bandwidth, a bit of an elastic band here and there to stretch on the other stuff. But the bare minimum has to be there always. So that comes down to the systems. And then I also don't worry too much that I'm doing that sometimes, because a lot of people also say to me the same thing. What are you doing? Too many things, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you, Darren. Tell me one thing about your upbringing which reflects on who you are today.
Wow, what a great question. Look, I'm going to have to say my upbringing was very warm and collaborative. And my mum and dad always said, you can do anything you want to do. Just go ahead and do it. Try it. It was always very enthusiastic and trying to think of the right word in English. Supportive. That's the word I'm looking for. Supportive.
Okay.
It was always very supportive. So I never had a problem with confidence or trying to do things and failing and all that kind of stuff. So I'd say that had a lot to do with what I do now. And also as a kid, I grew up in a big family, lots of extended cousins, and I got to meet lots of interesting people, and everybody did different things. So I was always very exposed to music and art and business and all sorts of things. So I was just drawing from everyone and everything that I was exposed to when I was a kid.
We'll be back after a quick break.
At my current company, I've generated 7 figures in revenue in just 6 months doing all the sales by myself. Just me and Rumi, my secret weapon. Rumi isn't just another meeting app. It's like Zoom or Google Meet, but with AI tools that supercharge my results. Rumi records every meeting, gives me real-time insights during sales calls, and if I've met with a prospect in the past, Rumi's meeting memory answers any questions I have before the call. I don't waste time digging through notes, Rumi preps me instantly. Go to tryrumi.ai, that's tryrumi.ai for a 14-day free trial.
Awesome. So it sounds like you had a pretty happy childhood.
Yeah,
It
I was
was
a very happy
supportive.
childhood. Yes, absolutely. Very supportive.
Wonderful. And where did you grow up, Darren?
So I grew up in Sydney, Australia, and I'm still here now. Born and bred Aussie. So yeah, it's been great.
Wonderful. All right. So why did you get into podcasting? Tell me the story how you started your podcast journey.
Yeah, great question. So at a certain point, probably about 6, 7 years ago, I realized that in the new world that we lived in, as a recruiter and as a photographer, because I started doing a bit of photography already back then, I realized that the traditional means of business development, of marketing, of getting new clients wasn't as working as well as it used to be. I used to be able to just pick up the phone, used to be able to do letter drops, used to be able to put ads on all over the place in print, and things were changing, and both in the recruitment space and in general. And I thought there's got to be a better way to start adapting and adopting new technologies in the modern world that we live in to start developing more of a brand. And someone actually mentioned Gary Vee to me. And I started diving into Gary Vee's content and listening, and I love him still to this day. And one of the
Yep.
things that he was absolutely passionate about was podcasting. He said, everyone has got to have a podcast. You've got to be the mayor of your town. You've almost got to be a marketer first, or the magazine of your town or radio show of your town first, and whatever it is you do second. And I thought,
Yeah.
wow, that's really profound. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to just give it a go. Like I do, I just jumped in. So I jumped into,
Yep.
and I put together 2 podcasts, one for my recruitment business, which I still run today, but it's not as high volume as my other podcast. And then the other podcast was built in with the photography brand, and I've wrapped up that whole brand all into one. And I call that my variety show. So I interview lots of different people about lots of different things. I don't want to stay talking about the same thing all the time. And so it's anywhere from health to business to mindset to finance to real estate to whatever, art, movies, book launches. And I've fallen in love so much with podcasting that I've turned that into a platform, a marketing platform for people where they want to come in and, number one, be interviewed by someone who's been doing it for a little while, so they have a good quality interview, they get good content, and they get good branding and good awareness. And so I'm turning that into a little ecosystem, a podcasting ecosystem. And now I'm starting to sell courses, digital courses and digital products and all sorts of things around the podcasting world, simply because I just love podcasting so much. So it was just this natural progression from using it as a business development marketing tool to loving it for the sake of it, and then doing something in it because I love it.
Yeah. So I've been doing this for 7 years, 518 episodes, something like that.
Wow, you're unbelievable.
Yeah, I've been doing it a long time. The first 100 episodes were not very good,
No,
but
me neither.
we've got better over time, thankfully. But the reason why I love podcasting is that, and I tell this to clients of ours that we work with in the podcast guesting space, is you might hire a PR service to get you on a whole bunch of stuff. So it might be a national television radio, national television, national breakfast radio, whatever, and you'll get 3 or 4 minutes worth of exposure,
Yep.
and you can talk about a theme.
Yeah.
But when you're talking to people on a podcast, it's invariably 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, probably not more, a lot more than that. I know Joe Rogan and people do 3 hours,
Yeah,
but
that's
that's
a bit
quite rare.
too much for me.
But the reason why I love it is that you get that depth, you get to understand people, you get to listen to their stories, their explanations, what they believe in, what they don't believe in.
Yeah.
And for me, that depth of conversation is the thing that keeps me coming back to releasing episodes
Agree.
and doing the interviews and doing the hard yards. What for you makes podcasting such a special medium?
Yeah, so for me, and one of the things that I always talk about when I'm teaching and training in the podcasting space is that podcasting, apart from just being amazing as a brand awareness tool or as a marketing tool in general for building trust and credibility and all that kind of awareness and all that kind of stuff, it is an incredible formula or system for creating marketing content. And that's what I think is fascinating about podcasting, because more and more people these days are struggling for ideas with their marketing content. They don't know how to repurpose stuff. They don't have enough stuff to repurpose. They don't know what platforms to use. They don't have enough video content, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're always racking their brain on what are they going to do to get their name and brand out there.
Yeah.
And if you just run a podcast like you do, or like I do once a week minimum, you will have absolute marketing content up to the wazoo. You'll never run out of it in every form possible: graphic, video, audio,
Yeah.
written, whatever. You can extract and repurpose a million things. And so for me, that's the really hidden power of podcasting. And a lot of people, if I say to people, look, all right, you don't want to start a podcast yourself because it might be a bit too much work, at least get on other people's shows, get the content, and just repurpose it. And that's an incredible strategy in itself. So that's the real hidden power of it. And that's why I love it. But I also love it because it's fun and it's cool. And I love these conversations. And you can go half an hour and you just blink. So we just chatted for half an hour.
Mm.
And it's so much fun when it's an organic conversation.
So that's interesting. Business reason for podcasting is a marketing strategy, basically creating content that you can repurpose on other platforms.
Definitely.
And is that the main reason why you're talking to business owners that are interested, or people coming to you for your courses and your digital content, is because you're saying to people, we all know we need to be on social media. We all know we need to be releasing stuff. We need to know that we've got to be maybe on your website, maybe on a landing page. You need to have exposure. So the digital content is why. And why? And is that working for your clients? Are they? What's their metric, and how do they know that they're being successful?
Yeah, good one. First of all, the people that go through it and do a course and actually commit to releasing podcasts regularly, and if they do it for a good 6 to 12 months, they do definitely get traction. And everybody's got their own metric for what they want to measure. But I can honestly say, and I had a conversation this morning, that a lot of people do start, and after 10, 20 episodes, they just give up. It's a very, very common theme.
That was going to be my next question, was
Very
because I trained people how to start a podcast probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I did a few masterclasses, a few one-to-one training.
Yep.
And one of the reasons I stopped it was I was a little bit demoralized. Like, no one got to 20, no one got to 50 episodes.
Yeah.
There was one guy that got to 78 episodes, and I was like really buzzing that he'd cracked it, and then he stopped as well.
Yep.
So how do you get over that sort of that feeling that you know that not many people are going to get, or most people will never get to 50 episodes? How do you
That's a really good one.
reconcile that?
Well, for me, I love the actual art of, or the act of teaching. I love teaching, number one. So I know that obviously not everybody's going to do it. People get excited, but I just love being there, talking about it, teaching everything, sharing what I've learned. And I also try to infuse in anything that I do a lot of general marketing philosophy and general sales philosophy and stuff that's going to help people, tools and the latest tools and technology and AI and all that kind of stuff. So the stuff that's going to help people regardless of whether they take this and go for it for 100 or 200 episodes. But obviously I love it if people can commit to it and do it. And they come back to me and say, thank you so much, Darren. And I see it on social media. I see their episodes firing away one after another, and they're really into it and they love it. I know that not everybody's going to do it, but I also caveat that with the fact that if they understand the marketing philosophy behind it and they don't want to start their own podcast, at least do what I'm doing right now, jump on someone else's podcast. At least do that. So I'm trying to come at it from an open mind, give people whatever tools and inspiration they need to do what they have to do. But I know that not everybody's going to do it, but that's just the way it is.
What's the biggest misconception that people have, that clients have when they're working with you, when they're wanting to start a podcast?
Number one, a lot of the time people think that they're going to get results faster than it takes. So that's number one. And number two is they don't realize how much prep is actually involved. How much prep and post work, and to do it well. You can do it really quickly and really raw. But if you want to do it well, you've got to plan a little bit. You've got to do a little bit of work in the production, or at least outsource it. And you've got to promote it as well. So that's why I call it my 3 Ps of podcasting. It's about preparation, production, and promotion. And if you don't do all 3, it's wasted. It's almost like having the most amazing $500,000 website that does everything, and nobody knows
Mm,
it exists. What's the point?
mm,
So you
mm.
can't be the podcast world's best kept secret. You've got to actually market yourself as well. So it's really
Yeah,
that's a big thing.
it's a really interesting point you say about marketing, and it is so important for a podcast because now I don't know the statistics, but a wise sage, my friend Rob Greenlee, said to me that there's three ways of really building an audience. I'd be interested to know what your ideas of building an audience are. One is social media.
Yep.
However much you like it or dislike it,
Oh,
you do need to post on
for
social
sure.
media. You also need a website, a developed website that's building an audience
Yep.
by search and keywords and SEO and all that great stuff. And the other one, which I feel a lot of people struggle with, is word of mouth.
Yes,
You have to be telling people you've got a podcast.
definitely.
And that's obviously that's sometimes a really big challenge for people to tell their friends, their family. Like they don't mind it being out on the internet and people can listen to it if they like,
Yeah.
but telling your brother or something like that, or your mum that you've got a podcast can be
Yeah.
quite daunting. What for you are those strategies that really mean that you can build a loyal listener base?
Yeah. So I would say that you covered all the great ones, but I would also add joining a business networking group can be really powerful. Having a really strong newsletter campaign.
Yeah.
And I'm almost coming back to the world of newsletters and EDMs in a way because social media is really important. I still do a lot of work on social, but because social media is getting noisier and more saturated,
Mm, mm,
newsletters are almost coming back, but they've got to be done well. You can't just send some thin article with no thought, with no presentation, with nothing engaging in it, then people just delete it. But if you really put some effort into it and make it look nice and make it engaging and full of energy, and maybe have some fun graphics or colors or what, like you can actually get some good open rates and some good traction. And it takes time to build as well. And everybody's busy, not everybody's going to click. But doing things like that can be really powerful as well. So it's really a combination of all those things, as well as talking about it. As you said, everywhere I go, I drop my podcast, and it's amazing how people say, "Oh, wow, what's it about? Can I listen? Can I come on? Whatever."
mm,
So
mm,
it's
mm.
amazing, what happens when you say you've got a podcast. And I always try and think of the traditional methods of marketing as well. There might be something you can do by putting a little pamphlet in your local cafe window or on something on the I don't know, on the counter of the shop. Or I've seen podcasts being advertised on billboards, just on a little small billboard as you walk through the city. There's mainly a million things you could do, but the biggest ones are the ones you mentioned. Plus, I would also add business networking, which is really powerful, and newsletter campaigns or building a newsletter audience.
This is to everyone that's listening and watching this. Is there anything that we've missed of key marketing strategies for podcasting? I'd be really interested if we've missed something that's massive. So please do hit me down in the comments if you've got any of those marketing strategies that we've missed.
Right.
But I agree, a newsletter is really important. I shied away from a newsletter. I've actually, in the last 6 weeks or so, started building a newsletter campaign every other week.
Yeah.
Because I really think it's actually, you make a valid point. Social media is so saturated now. Like LinkedIn used to be a place where you could get your message heard, and over a billion users now, it just makes it more tricky.
Yeah.
So I agree. We've got to think of new and interesting ways to be able to connect with our communities.
Yeah.
I think that's incredibly important. Right. Something that we talked about technology just a minute ago. Now, I got demoed something last Friday, which was an AI avatar
Right.
that was created, and the audio and the video was all created by AI.
Wow.
And it started making me think. It looked really accurate. It looked like a person. It was very interesting. The way she was presenting was like a human, in the sense of you might have an and an R and a sort of pause and a thought process. It was very, very well designed and very well constructed.
Yep.
And I was like, oh
Scary.
God. What's your views on AI and how that's going to impact podcasts?
Yeah, scary. As you're talking, I'm thinking, who knows? We might have an AI podcaster very soon. And everybody's listening to this
100%.
AI robot interviewing all these people. Oh my God, it's quite crazy.
It's an incredible thought. And what's in this last Friday demoed, I was like, actually, they are a lot closer to than I thought we actually were.
Yeah.
Now, I try and follow AI as a subject, as a trend to see where things are going. And I use AI as part of my podcast workflow.
Yep, me too.
But this whole aspect of it's not that far down the line, people are not going to know whether you're human or AI.
Yep.
It's going to be that great.
Pretty scary. And I suppose what
I do think there's an authenticity though about a person
agree. And I think that's
that
what I
I'm
was gonna say.
hoping
Yep.
as a podcaster, I'm hoping that will keep us in our jobs and keep our podcast going, because there is an unpredictability of podcasting with a human
Yes.
that maybe you don't get with an AI.
I will bring that back to marketing in general. Like generally human beings like to connect with other human beings and follow and be inspired by other human beings and learn more about them in the holistic sense. So one of the things that is so beautiful about having a podcast is it's like a little lead in to everything else that you might do in your business as a human, whatever. But if you're just an AI character, you're only going to get so much. And the person is not going to really be able to dive in and understand that character like they would understand a person, because there's nowhere else to go. So I think there's a lot to be said about that. Who knows what's going to happen? But I'd say human conversations and building personal brands that are authentic and human are still going to be here for a while. I'm sure that AI is going to help us a lot. Who knows? We might have an AI. I don't know. They used to have on some of those evening shows like some kind of like mascot or something. Might have some kind of AI mascot walking around and saying, "Oh, what do you think?" Just having fun.
I think it'd be really interesting to have an AI co-host.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that.
That's what I was thinking.
Exactly. Or a little dummy, like a little AI
Wouldn't
dummy.
that be cool if there was 3 of us on this call and one of them was an AI that had been programmed and
that'd
to
be
be able
fun.
to respond? It'd be pretty cool to see how that works.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Something I get told, and this is not me being asked, this is me being told, and I want to hear your view, is it's too late. I'm too late to podcasting. Like, it's too saturated. What's your view on people who challenge you or ask you, like, are they too late to podcasting?
Nice. Yeah. Well, I'll say two things to that. First of all, you're never too late, because not everybody's going to become Joe Rogan. Not everybody wants to become Joe Rogan. You don't have to get your message out to the world. Not everybody has to know about you. Just enough people that in your own little community or in your own niche or target market, that's fine. That's enough. And there's enough business for everybody. If you just carve out your niche really well, you can do extremely well. But I would also say that, coming back to my original point about that it's a marketing system, then it doesn't even matter whether or not there's 20,000 or 30,000 or 100,000 podcasts. If it's still allowing me to build and create marketing content for everything else that I do, who cares? It's still working for me. So I look at it in that respect as well. It's not just about the podcast and how many people are listening to me, but it's how I can leverage the podcast for everything else that I want.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think it is a really valuable tool. And I'm seeing in the market a lot more companies doing B2B podcasts. So they're an established brand or relatively established, and they're going out and they're podcasting, they're sharing their expertise. They might have their clients on shows, they might have prospects, so they're building relationships as part of podcasting. And that, for me, I think is a really interesting space.
Definitely.
Because people do care I don't think they do one, but a McDonald's or a Coca-Cola. I can think of a couple of examples of. So there's The Economist, which is a news magazine that are doing one. There's also a couple of companies that have come across my path that are doing these shows. Do you work with the B2B market? Is that something that you're getting involved in?
Not as much. A lot of my clients tend to be solopreneurs or very small businesses that want to just learn to do that. But a really good point that you made is that podcasting can be an incredible tool as a business development or prospecting tool.
Yeah.
Incredible tool, because we're also limited for access these days. And it's a great way to get access to people that you would never normally get access to.
Yeah.
So it's a very strong tool from that point of view. And a lot of people are jumping onto that, and they're building a whole strategy off the back of just interviewing prospects.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's a friend of mine who's a CEO coach, and he gets people, high level people on shows, and he's thinking in the back of his head, is this someone that I can help?
Yep.
Which I think is a great way of using podcasting as a marketing
Yeah,
strategy.
definitely.
I also love the idea of these companies building their presence online, sharing their details. And it's been interesting. You said a couple of times about the local. I listened to a podcast, the New Media Show, and they were saying they had a guy called Adam Curry on, and he said that he sees the future of podcasting to be much more local, and your area, your local area, you do a podcast about events that are going
Yep.
on, and that shops opening or shops closing or
Yeah.
things changing. I don't think of my show as a local show. Like, I'm based in the UK. I have a lot of US people on. I've had people from Singapore and Taiwan
Wow.
and South Africa and France. So I always think my show is a very global show.
Yep.
How does a podcaster balance to get the most out of their podcast journey, their podcast experience, when they're balancing the fact that, do they look for a very local audience, or do they embrace the global like citizen ability to be able to reach anywhere in the world?
Yep.
How do you, when you're talking to your clients, do you balance that, the local versus global?
It all boils down to taking it right back to the beginning and thinking about the strategy. Why are you podcasting in the first place?
Yes.
If you are podcasting for a particular business reason and you need a particular niche of clients, then and if you're trying to build awareness and trust in that client base, then you just go wherever those clients are. Whether they're local, whether they're global, it all depends on where the clients are. But if you're doing it like for me, I'm the opposite in a way. I'm building a marketing platform, podcasting ecosystem for anybody. So I'm happily can go global because I don't have any particular niche or local person that I'm trying to serve. I'm trying to serve anybody that's interested in podcasting. So it really depends on the preparation and the strategy of your show. They're both right. It's just why are you doing them, for what reason? So that's where you really have to take a step back and think, why am I doing this? What am I trying to achieve? I'm not just jumping on the podcast just for that podcast's sake. What do I want to get out of this? And if you think about that, that will drive your strategy, and you know which way to go.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. The knowing why you want to start a podcast is really important, and that can change over time. But the reason why I started a podcast 7 years ago is very different to why I'm running it now. It's a completely different reason, and that does evolve and that does change over time. Yeah, I totally agree. One of the things that frustrated me when I was training people was, when can I monetize? That was literally, and I always kept, it started off being a 5-hour course. It reduced to 3 hours. And when we started every one of the courses, everyone said, how can I monetize podcasting?
Yeah.
So firstly, are you experiencing the same thing? And what do you respond to people when they're asking those questions?
Yeah, it's certainly becoming a much more common question and a much more common theme. And I'm thinking rightly so in a way as well, because podcasting as we know it now is maturing. We're reaching that point now of critical mass where everybody knows why we're podcasting. There's a lot of podcasts. Everybody knows what a podcast is. Everybody knows lots of podcasters. So it's almost time to think, okay, I'm putting in all this work, all this energy and editing and prep and post work and production and marketing. Surely there's a way for me to make some money out of this as well. So it makes sense to me that people are asking that, and I'm all for that as well. And I monetize in a few different ways as well. I'm trying to monetize in a few different ways. But the first thing I'll say to people is absolutely, you can monetize, but Of course, you have to build a bit of a following and a bit of an episode girth under your belt before you start worrying about that. But then I also say that you don't always have to do that either. And it's really about how you can be creative in how you monetize. So the hardest way is to really build a huge following and then get people to sponsor, because they're only going to sponsor per how much audience you have. If you're not going to get in front of enough people, they're not going to sponsor you. But if you think about all the other ways you can monetize, you can start monetizing from day dot in a very clever way. And so some examples might be, say you're a business coach and you are wanting to educate people on how to conduct themselves and new business strategies, etc. You can give away 70% of your stuff for free in the podcast, but you might want to hold back 30% and say, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Giving you lots of information on my podcast. If you're interested, no pressure. I have this little service where if you join up for so much a month, you're going to get access to all my premium content. So there's a way someone can monetize straight away without even worrying about how many followers they have. Or there's merchandise. If I had a microphone here with Coca-Cola on it, they would be paying me for that. Or if I had a drink bottle or whatever. If I had a t-shirt, if I had a hat, if I was podcasting about pets, I could co-sponsor with someone that does pet products or whatever. So there's ways to start monetizing and thinking about how you can collaborate without just waiting to have 20, 30, 100,000 people as listeners.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And the more creative ways to monetize, like you started a business helping people start shows. I've started a business helping people get on shows as a podcast guest.
There you go. Perfect.
And so you sometimes have to think a little bit more creative than just, I need to build that audience to be able to get sponsors that can outreach to things. I 100% agree. It is hard though, because everyone comes into the conversation with, I need to get an audience to be able to get sponsorship. And one of my friends ran a show a long time ago, but he ran a show on car wash in America.
Wow.
Now, he managed to get some really nice sponsorship deals because he was embedded in that niche so deeply that everyone in that industry was listening to it.
Yeah.
And he got a shampoo company to sponsor him. And he said it was the most profitable, for the effort I was making was incredibly profitable.
Incredible.
So that niche, that idea of the niche that you need to be prioritizing and starting with, I think is so important. That whole idea of niche, I think, is an incredibly important starting point for any podcaster.
Definitely,
what's your thoughts?
Definitely. And also getting in early. If you are the first one in that little niche, you're going to build such a following that at some point they're going to have to come to you because you've got the audience. So getting in early and doing things right is great. But again, you don't always have to rely just on sponsorship. If I started as a nobody podcaster, which I still am, and I'm just doing really great work and people are starting to trust me, people are going to start hiring me to speak at events or doing workshops or consulting, or so you can make money off the back of what you're doing without having sponsorship deals per se. So it's about how do I get creative and how do I monetize in that way rather than just having the following and putting an ad on.
Okay, we're just going to broaden it out a little bit. So how would you say you've evolved as an entrepreneur over the years?
Wow. I definitely would say that I'm much more comfortable now pivoting and trying and playing with stuff and adapting to new trends and new technologies. Whereas in the past, I was more, this is what you do, this is all you are, and that's it. So and once you've done one or two things and you've broken away from what your core business is, you can do it 100 times. Once you have the confidence to do it once or twice, you can do it forever. And you just know that you can get it done. And you just have to think systematically about how you dissect what you're trying to do and put together a plan and run with it. So definitely be more confident in how I do things. And then at the same time, you also break down business and you also realize that business in any sense is quite similar. There's fundamentals that are always the same. Doesn't matter where you are. The product might be a product. One day it's a service, but building trust, building credibility, using testimonials, using video, using the right copy. It's always this, using the right systems, always the same principles, really.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Are you ready to take your business to the top? Join Dr. Lyman Montgomery on Sail to the Top, the podcast that dives into the real issues business owners and HR pros face every day. From compliance headaches to team challenges, Dr. Montgomery reveals the secrets to scaling with success. Don't just survive, thrive. Listen to Sail to the Top wherever you get your podcast.
Mm. What would you say your risk appetite is?
My risk appetite is, it's big, but it's not huge in the sense that I'm never going to put everything at risk. Like I'll do things slowly and on the side while I'm doing other things. And when I'm ready, I can start spending more time or more energy or more money on one area, but I'm not going to go diving in to something without any proof or just diving into the unknown without any security blanket. To me, that's crazy. So it's really about being calculated with your risk.
Yeah. And what do you still want to achieve?
Good question. Honestly, I'm a bit of a in the moment type person. I'm a bit of a gypsy in that respect. So I just love to do what I'm doing. And if I'm enjoying what I'm doing, I'm just naturally come up with all these ideas and I just have to action them. And whether they work, they don't work, but I'll just do them anyway because I just have to do them. I'm compelled to do them. But I don't worry, in 5 years I want to be here, or in 10 years I want to be there. I just go on the journey. And if I look back at my podcasting journey, I never even dreamed that I'd be doing this right now. I've never dreamed of it. Who would have thought? I was a recruiter, but I just love it. And who knows where I'm going to be in 5, 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think when we're talking about growing and expanding our mindset and prioritizing different things? You've said you're quite impulsive. You'll explore things and experiment with things. So you're obviously open to suggestions on
Sure.
how to do things.
Yeah.
What for you? Do you have a coach? Do you have a mentor? Is there someone in your life that, because it sounds, and I might be wrong, it sounds like your businesses are very much centered around
They
you
are.
as the linchpin of them to be successful.
Yes, definitely.
So what's your outside influence? Do you have a coach? Do you have a mentor? Do you have someone that you talk these things with?
Yeah, I talk to my family. I talk to my mum a lot. She's like my business partner. She gives me some great ideas. I'm always bouncing ideas off her, off my brother and my family. But I don't have a coach per se, but I would say that I listen to a hell of a lot of books and podcasts. And I listen to people that I really respect and I'm on the same wavelength with. And I consider them my business coaches.
Right.
So I'm always reading, I'm always listening, I'm always learning, and I'm drawing from different things that I hear. And as well, as I mentioned, I belong to a business network. And one of the biggest opportunities that I've got from belonging to a business network is it's also just exposed me to different people and how they do different things. So I'm learning, I'm constantly learning and observing what people are doing. And then I'm just working at how I can apply them in my way. But in terms of accountability, like coaches are great for accountability and helping you think through things. And I'm pretty good at making myself accountable. Sometimes I'm too crazy because I just drop things and just go full steam ahead. But it's really just the inspiration that I get from other things and other people and books and audiobooks. And I'm really just learning and just then I'm quite self-driven in that respect. By no means am I a master at this.
Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I ask the same 6 questions to all of my guests. So quick fire questions. They don't need a quick fire answer. First question is, what's the best decision that you've made?
Best decision I made. That's a great one. Whew. If I go back and look back at my journey, I would say probably starting to explore photography, which was my school time passion, and then turn it into a business because that kind of sparked the rest of all this journey by that one step in a way. So that was probably one of my pivoting moments, really.
Amazing. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
The best piece of advice would probably just be again, and I listen to a lot of people, is don't be afraid to fail. Just do it,
Mm,
and who cares? Don't worry so much.
mm.
Everybody's so worried about how people are perceiving them, how they're going to be judged, all this kind of thing. To me, that's crazy. Just do it. Who cares about everybody else as long as you're happy?
Someone said to me, and I've heard this from someone like a Gary V,
Mm.
no one
No one
cares.
cares.
No one cares about you.
No,
Like
your
you
own world.
do what you're passionate about. Do what you love doing. It was
Yep.
great if it can be monetized, but just do it because no one really cares. Obviously, your friends and your family and people like that, but don't worry about like posting on social media. I was talking to a lady, a friend of mine, and she wanted to post on social media, and she went through this whole thing like, people are going to judge me, people are going to think that what am I posting about, why am I posting that?
Yeah.
And she's been working with a coach, and basically wonderfully he's empowered her to start posting things like,
Beautiful.
sometimes it's a little bit not personal, but things about her life, sometimes
Yeah.
it's about things in her business and things that are going on around her, and that's very freeing, that whole concept of no one really cares. Like,
Yep.
just get on with it. Just do
Get
it.
on with it. You're like, at the end of the day, you're one of how many hundreds of thousands of posts that minute or that hour,
Yeah.
and how
Yeah.
many of your audience is actually going to even see that you wrote that at that time? So what are you worried about? It's just almost like non-existent. If I say to someone,
Yeah.
"Oh, did you see that post from yesterday?" They go, "Oh, really? What did you do?" They wouldn't
What did
even
he
know.
say?
Wouldn't even know what I did.
Next question. Who's the person that's helped you most in your career?
I would say my mum. I have to give my mum chops for that. She's been my rock, always bouncing ideas off, and she's like my business partner and always gives me good ideas and gives me support.
What did she do in her career?
So she did a lot of sales and admin and typing and reception and all sorts of office stuff. But she's just always been, and being a mum and a housewife, but she's just always been incredibly supportive and she's also studied accounting, so she's very clever with the numbers, better than me.
Right. Good. Yeah, that's useful.
Yeah, so that's very useful. So she's very clever with the numbers and and the bookkeeping. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I have to think about it. Oh yeah, that makes sense. So she's really my confidant and you want to use that word.
Amazing. Okay, Darren, tell me about a regret that you have.
Oh, I would say not starting this journey of podcasting and really getting out there, not starting it early enough. I would have loved to have started to do this 10, 15 years ago, not 7. Would have made a huge difference because again, obviously the market's been more saturated. I would have had much more traction. I would be ahead of where I am now, and who knows what I'd be up to. So I'd say just not doing this early enough.
Yeah, the whole point of saturation, I've been thinking about this. So we've got a directory that we can see all shows globally, right? We can outreach to any show globally. Now, there are 4 million shows registered.
Wow.
There were only 230,000 shows that released an episode in the last 30 days.
Wow, I've heard something similar to that. That just goes to
So there's a perception that it's very
Yeah,
saturated, but
agree.
actually, when you think how many different subjects, niches, areas
True.
that you can podcast on,
Very true.
actually, this point of it's just, I think the perception is that now podcasts have come a little bit more into the mainstream.
Yep.
So you've got your Joe Rogans that's now on social media all the time.
Yep.
You've got your Tim Ferrisses, you've got your Diary of a CEOs,
Yep.
which are hitting mainstream audiences.
Mhm.
So it's not necessarily the audiences are reducing; they may be growing. I actually think there's a problem that the 1%ers, your people, your Joe Rogans, your Tim Ferrisses, your Diary of a CEO, all those people are taking up millions and millions of downloads. The rest of us live in a completely different world where it's thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands that we're fighting for.
Yeah,
Listen.
yeah.
So I do think there is this whole idea is a little bit of a misconception.
Yeah, I like that.
actually
That's
it's
a really good point.
saturated
Really
market.
good point. When you really study the metrics, it puts it into perspective.
Next question. What are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? I would just say my ability to recreate and do things that are a little different and not be too worried about going on the journey and just going for it. I'm most proud about that muscle that I have to be able to just do that.
Wonderful. What's your why? Why do you do what you do?
Everything I do because I enjoy it. If I didn't enjoy it, number one, I wouldn't do it. I spend ridiculous amounts of work during the day. I'm working 16 hours a day, whatever, but I love it. I'm at my desk most of the time from the morning till night. I'm doing a million different things. I'm teaching photography. I'm teaching podcasting. I'm doing all sorts of other stuff, recruiting. But if I didn't love what I was doing, I wouldn't do it. So my biggest why is just get up every morning and enjoy the journey. Of course, not every part of the journey is going to be amazing. And that's where outsourcing and delegation can come in. So if you really hate something, try and outsource it. Don't do it. Or find a tool. These days with AI, there's all sorts of tools that you can use to help you. So you don't even need to spend big money on a person. You can use a tool. So that's another great if I wasn't enjoying the journey of being an entrepreneur and just exploring and being curious and learning, then I wouldn't do it. That's why I get up in the morning.
Amazing. What does legacy mean to you?
Wow, great one. Legacy is a huge one, and it can mean so many things. I'm not married, so I don't have any kids, so I'm not really thinking about legacy in terms of who I leave behind as sons and daughters. But for me, my legacy is almost, I'm living my legacy at the same as while I'm alive. It's like everyone that I am in contact with and everybody that I touch, I want just to have a positive experience. And I want to be the person that say, oh, Darren's a great guy. He's awesome. He's helped me do this. I've learned so much. Really nice guy, really humble. And just have that legacy of if I'm going to leave the world behind, I've left it a better place for those people that I've been in contact with. Yeah.
Amazing. And lastly, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you or they want to learn more about what you do?
So you can just jump on my website, which is really easy. It's just suspendedanimation.com.au. And you can find links to all my stuff, my podcasts, my photo stuff, my courses, my challenges, my social handles, all there from the one place.
Wonderful. Thank you, Darren. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been an
Pleasure.
absolute pleasure deep diving into podcasting.
Really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that, Mark. Loved it.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Business Growth Talks. This podcast is released every Monday, so don't miss an episode by subscribing to all podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Have a great day.